Claire walked down the quiet streets of Boston, the winter air crisp against her face, and she couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that had settled into her life over the past few years. She had always been someone who planned carefully, who avoided mistakes, who followed every rule to make sure nothing in her life went wrong. Her job at the publishing house was steady, her apartment tidy and quiet, and her social life predictable. But lately, that predictability felt like a cage. She craved something she couldn't name, something that would make her feel alive, make her heart race in ways it hadn't in years. It was on one of these evening walks that she saw him again. She had ducked into a small cafe to escape the cold, a place she had never noticed before, with warm lights and soft jazz playing in the background. As she stepped inside, she froze. Ethan, he was sitting at a corner table, a coffee in front of him, looking out the window with a quiet intensity. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. Years had changed him, shaped him in ways she hadn't expected. But then he turned, and his eyes met hers. That familiar spark, that same easy, knowing smile, hit her in a way she hadn't felt in years. Claire. His voice was soft, careful, as if he too was trying to make sure this moment was real. She nodded, unsure of what to say. Ethan, it's been a long time. He stood up, and for a moment they just stared at each other, letting the years of distance settle between them like dust. Then he laughed, that warm, easy laugh that reminded her of summer afternoons spent by the lake, of late-night talks and whispered secrets. "I didn't expect to see you here," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "It's been, what, 8 years?" Claire smiled a little awkwardly. "Something like that. You look different." She meant it as a compliment, though she wasn't sure if he would hear it that way. "Yeah, I guess we both do," he said. There was a weight in his tone, like the past had taught him something she hadn't yet learned. Boston treats people differently. For the first hour, they talked carefully, catching up on the essentials: jobs, friends, family. But as the conversation flowed, the familiar rhythm of their old friendship began to emerge. She laughed at his dry jokes. He remembered details about her childhood that no one else seemed to notice. And somewhere between the sips of coffee and the warmth of shared memories, Claire realized something that made her heart both flutter and ice. She had missed this. Missed someone who truly understood her in a way few people ever could. Ethan seemed to sense it. He leaned forward, his eyes studying her, thoughtful. "You know, Claire, life doesn't wait for anyone. You can plan, prepare, protect yourself all you want, but at some point, you have to try. You have to step forward, even if it scares you." Her fingers tightened around the mug in her hands. She knew he was right. She had spent years avoiding risks, avoiding heartbreak, failure, even joy, because she was afraid of what might happen if she let herself really live. And yet, sitting there, listening to him, she felt a stir of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Maybe I should try," she said softly, almost to herself. The words sounded foreign in her own ears, but the feeling behind them was real. She wanted to take a step to break free from the life she had been clinging to experience something that might change her in ways she couldn't predict. Ethan smiled then, and it was a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Good. You should. Sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference." And then he surprised her. He asked something simple, yet it carried a promise of change. "There's a small art retreat this weekend by the coast," he said. "It's quiet, beautiful, and a little different. I think you'd enjoy it. You should come with me." Claire's mind raced. Adventure. She hadn't had anything remotely like that in years. Her life was a series of routines, a checklist of obligations. The idea of leaving it all behind for a few days felt both thrilling and terrifying. She hesitated, biting her lip, trying to weigh the comfort of safety against the pull of the unknown. I think I'll try it," she finally whispered. And even as she said it, a rush of excitement flooded through her. She didn't know what would happen at the retreat, didn't know if she would meet new people, learn new things, or even enjoy herself, but for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Ethan's eyes lit up. "That's the spirit," he said, and there was a softness to his voice that made her heart flutter. "You won't regret it." As they left the cafe, walking side by side into the cold evening air, Claire felt a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness. She couldn't imagine what the weekend would hold, but the thought of trying something new filled her with a quiet hope she hadn't felt in years. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Claire found herself thinking constantly about the retreat, wondering what it would be like, wondering what Ethan had planned, wondering if she was ready to let go of her careful life just for a few days. She packed her bags with a sense of purpose, choosing clothes she liked, brushes for painting she hadn't touched in years, a journal she hoped would capture her thoughts. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was stepping towards something that mattered, something that could change her life. When Saturday finally arrived, Claire felt a flutter of nerves as she met Ethan outside her apartment building. He was already waiting, a small backpack slung over his shoulder, a grin on his face that made her stomach twist in anticipation. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked. "Teasingly." Claire laughed, shaking her head. "I think I am. Nervous, but ready?" The drive to the coast was quiet at first, filled with small talk and the comfortable silence of people who had once been close, but were now rediscovering each other. Then Ethan began pointing out the scenery, little hidden spots along the road, the way the sunlight hit the waves, the smell of the ocean carried by the wind. Claire felt a sense of wonder she hadn't felt in years. Everything looked sharper, brighter, more alive. When they arrived at the retreat, Claire was struck by the beauty of the place. Small cottages dotted the cliffs, surrounded by wildflowers, and tall grasses swaying in the breeze. The ocean stretched endlessly beyond them, and the sound of waves crashing against the rocks was both calming and exhilarating. She felt a thrill of excitement. This was unlike anything she had done before. Ethan led her to her small cottage, showing her the simple, cozy space with a view of the sea. "This is your room," he said. "You'll love it here. Just let yourself enjoy it." Claire nodded, feeling a nervous energy bubbling inside her. She had no idea what the weekend would bring, but she was determined to try. She unpacked her things, set up her journal, and took a deep breath, letting the salty air fill her lungs. Later that evening, the retreat hosted a small gathering for everyone who had arrived. People laughed, shared stories, and painted by candlelight. And Claire found herself slowly opening up, encouraged by Ethan's gentle presence. For the first time in years, she felt part of something bigger than herself, something alive and vibrant. As she watched Ethan smile across the room, laughing with a few other guests, Claire realized that this simple decision to try something new, to step out of her comfort zone, was already changing her. She felt lighter, freer, more capable of feeling and experiencing life in a way she had almost forgotten. Later, when they walked along the cliffs together under the moonlight, Ethan spoke again, his voice soft and serious. "You know, Claire, life is full of chances. We don't always get them twice. Sometimes you just have to take the step and see where it leads." Claire looked out at the ocean, its waves crashing endlessly, and understood exactly what he meant. For years, she had waited for life to happen to her. Now, she was making it happen for herself. She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I'm ready," she said, not just to him, but to herself. "I really am ready." Ethan took her hand then, a simple, reassuring gesture that made her heart skip. "Good," he said, "because this weekend, it's going to be unforgettable." Claire didn't know what the next few days would bring, but she no longer felt afraid. For the first time in years, she felt hope, excitement, and the thrilling possibility that life could be bigger, brighter, and more beautiful than she had ever imagined. And as the stars reflected in the waves below, she knew this was only the beginning. She had decided to try. She had decided to live. The morning after arriving at the coastal retreat, Claire woke to the soft sound of waves rolling against the rocks. Sunlight streamed through her small cottage window, painting the room in gentle gold. For a moment, she simply lay there, letting the quiet and the sea calm her nerves. She could still feel the excitement from the day before, the thrill of leaving her routine, stepping into something unknown, and most of all, being here with Ethan. She got dressed, brushed her hair, and stepped outside. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of salt and the faint scent of wildflowers. Ethan was already there, stretching his arms and smiling at the rising sun. "Morning," he said, voice warm. "Ready for your first real day of adventure?" Claire laughed softly. "I think so. I'm nervous, though." "You'll do fine," he said, and for a moment she noticed a seriousness in his eyes, like he believed in her more than she believed in herself. "Just try everything, even if it scares you." The retreat was small, but filled with charm. Wooden cottages dotted the cliffs, surrounded by walking paths, hidden gardens, and little art stations where brushes and canvases were already waiting. Other guests were arriving, and Claire noticed that everyone carried an air of quiet curiosity, the kind of openness she had rarely seen in people back home. Ethan guided her to the main hall, where a local artist was preparing a painting session. "You can start with something simple," he said. "Let the colors lead you." Claire picked up a brush and stared at the blank canvas. Her hands felt stiff, unsure. She hadn't painted in years, had avoided anything that might feel messy or uncertain. But then she looked at Ethan, who gave her an encouraging nod, and she dipped the brush in the paint. The first stroke was hesitant, but then the colors started to flow, and she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of freedom. Time passed quickly. The hours were filled with painting, laughter, and quiet talks. Claire discovered that she could be messy, bold, and creative without judgment. Ethan walked beside her, sometimes teasing, sometimes encouraging, but always present. And with every brushstroke, she felt more alive, more herself, more connected to the moment and to him. After the painting session, they decided to take a walk along the cliffs. The path was narrow, bordered by wildflowers and the occasional wooden fence. The ocean stretched endlessly beside them, the waves sparkling under the midday sun. Claire felt her heart lifting with every step, a lightness she hadn't known since her teenage years. "You seem happier already," Ethan said, glancing at her. "I told you. Trying new things can do that." Claire smiled. "It's true. I didn't realize how much I needed this, how much I needed to step out of my safe little world." Ethan didn't answer immediately. He seemed lost in thought, watching the waves, and Claire noticed a softness in his expression. "You know," he finally said, "I've missed sharing these moments with someone who really wants to live them, who isn't afraid." Claire felt a flutter in her chest. His words weren't romantic. Not exactly, but there was something in the way he said them that made her pulse quicken. She had always thought of Ethan as a friend, someone from her past, but now she was beginning to see him differently. As the afternoon came, the retreat hosted a small guided hike. The trail wound through cliffs, past hidden coves, and offered breathtaking views of the ocean below. Claire had never been much of a hiker, but Ethan's presence made her feel safe and capable. He pointed out small details along the way: rare birds, unusual rock formations, patch of wildflowers peeking from a crack in the cliff. When they reached the top of a high cliff overlooking the sea, the wind whipped their hair and the waves roared below. Claire felt a dizzying mix of exhilaration and awe. She turned to Ethan, her face flushed from the climb and the wind, and he grinned at her like they were conspirators in some shared adventure. "See? I told you trying new things feels amazing," he said, teasing. But his eyes were full of warmth. Claire laughed, leaning against the railing. Okay, you were right." The evening brought something quieter, small gathering around a fire pit near the cottages. Guests shared stories, sipped tea, and watched the sun disappear behind the horizon. Claire sat beside Ethan, feeling the warmth of the fire and the closeness of his presence. She wanted to say something, anything, but words felt inadequate. Instead, she listened as he spoke softly to others, laughed easily, and occasionally glanced at her with that familiar, knowing look. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle over the ocean, Ethan suggested a walk along the beach. Claire followed, barefoot, letting the cold sand press against her feet. The moonlight reflected on the waves, casting a silver glow over the water. For a moment, everything felt surreal, like a dream she didn't want to wake from. Ethan stopped and looked out at the ocean, then turned to her. "Claire, I'm glad you decided to come. I know it's not easy to step into something new, but you've done it beautifully." Claire felt her chest tighten. I'm glad I came too. I don't think I realized how much I needed this until now." There was a pause, a quiet moment where the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them, the ocean and the stars. Ethan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It was a gentle, careful gesture, full of meaning without words. Claire's heart skipped, a warmth spreading through her she couldn't ignore. Over the next day, Claire continued to explore, painting more, trying simple yoga on the cliffside, and even joining a small dance workshop held by the retreat staff. Every time she tried something new, Ethan was there, encouraging, laughing with her, teasing in that familiar, affectionate way that made her heart race. She realized that life was not about perfection or staying safe. It was about experiencing, feeling, and allowing herself to grow. One afternoon, as she sat painting a sunset over the cliffs, Ethan joined her with his own canvas. He didn't speak at first, just let her focus, then said quietly, "You've changed. In just a couple of days, you've become lighter, more alive. It's incredible to watch." Claire's cheeks warmed. I feel different. I've been so careful for so long, afraid to risk anything, afraid to feel anything. And now, I don't know. It's like I'm finally awake." Ethan smiled, a mixture of pride and something deeper she couldn't name. "That's the point of experiences," he said softly. "They teach us what nothing else can." As the sun set that evening, Claire and Ethan walked along the cliffs again, the sky ablaze with pinks and oranges. The retreat was quiet, most guests resting or enjoying the solitude, and Claire felt a deep sense of peace. She had tried things she hadn't imagined herself doing: painting, hiking, dancing, and with every new experience, she had discovered something about herself she had long forgotten: courage, joy, the ability to connect with someone in ways that went beyond words. They stopped at a high point overlooking the ocean. Claire watched the waves glint in the fading light. And then she looked at Ethan. There was a vulnerability in his gaze that mirrored her own. Quiet acknowledgement that something unspoken had grown between them. "I think I've been missing moments like this for years," Claire admitted. "I thought I was safe, but I was just holding myself back. I didn't realize how much I needed to live to really feel life." Ethan nodded, taking her hand. "Life is full of chances, Claire. You just have to take them, even if it scares you." The simplicity of his words, combined with the sincerity in his eyes, made her heart ache in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about adventure, it was about trust, about connection, about letting someone in after so many years of holding back. As the stars appeared over the ocean, Claire felt a shift within her. She understood that this weekend wasn't just a retreat, it was a lesson, a reminder that life was meant to be experienced, not just observed. And she had chosen to take that lesson to heart. Ethan squeezed her hand, and she realized she didn't want to let go. There was no rush, no pressure, just the gentle certainty of a bond growing in the quiet moments between shared experiences. Claire realized that sometimes love didn't announce itself loudly. Sometimes it unfolded quietly, gently, and left a mark that could not be ignored. By the final night, Claire had painted more than she ever imagined, walked miles of cliffs, laughed, danced, and opened herself to new experiences. Sitting beside the fire one last time, she looked at Ethan and whispered, "Thank you for inviting me, for encouraging me, for showing me that life can be more than I allowed myself to see." Ethan smiled, brushing his thumb over her hand. "You did it yourself, Claire. I just reminded you how good it feels to try." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the waves, letting the stars above mirror the quiet happiness they both felt. Claire knew that stepping out of her comfort zone had changed her, not just for the weekend, but in ways that would shape her future. As she lay in bed that night, the sound of the ocean lulling her to sleep, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that life was bigger, brighter, and more beautiful than she had allowed herself to believe. Hope that love, too, could come quietly, steadily, and completely unexpectedly. And in the quiet darkness, Claire made a promise to herself. She would continue to try, to experience, to live fully. She would let herself feel, to take risks, and to embrace every opportunity life offered. Most importantly,